What is going on, Trash Talkers? We're back with another episode for you. In today's video, we're going to talk about the players on the roster bubble for each team in the NFC West. All that and much more coming your way right now! All right, Nick, we are finishing up this series, and we have the NFC West left to go. And I want to talk about these teams because this is the most hotly contested division that we have in the NFL. It is going to be a just absolute bloodbath to get to the finish line to win this division. And it all starts here in training camp. It all starts with making the right decisions to cut specific players, fine-tune this roster, and really get things going. So I want to start off with the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers have some interesting players that might be on the roster bubble, including running back JaMycal Hasty, wide receiver Mohamed Sanu, and edge player Arden Key. Out of these three, which do you believe is the biggest surprise for the 49ers?
The biggest surprise is going to be Mohamed Sanu, a guy who's been bouncing around the league the last few years, but he's been staying around with the 49ers for the last season or so, and he hasn't been the dominant player that he used to be in the beginning of his career, but he's been a guy that stays healthy, a guy that you can count on if you need him, especially for a 49ers roster that is pretty thin at the position. It's surprising to see Mohamed Sanu in the position he's in, but he's over the age of 30 and he works his ass off. I watch a lot of his training videos and he puts in a lot of time to get better at his craft, but it just looks like father time is creeping up on this guy more than he would like, and it's getting the best of him. It doesn't look like Mohamed Sanu is able to keep up with some of these young guys, even guys that haven't made a name for themselves. They're proving to be better in training camp so far. Mohamed Sanu is starting to fall a little bit. I think that Mohamed Sanu can keep trying, but it looks like the end of his career might be sooner rather than later.
Next up, we have the Arizona Cardinals, and the Cardinals are in one of those positions where they have made a lot of roster moves this offseason, free agency, the draft, trades, everything. And they are in a position where they can compete truly for a Super Bowl. And that includes getting this roster ready and maybe having to make some tough cuts. Some of those tough cuts could include linebacker Jordan Hicks, wide receiver Christian Kirk, and cornerback Robert Alford. Quickly, I just want to talk about Jordan Hicks. Jordan Hicks is one of those guys that we made a video on. So if you want to learn more about his situation, requesting a trade, and the linebacking core that they have, I urge you to go check out that video. It'll explain everything to you. For today's video, though, I want to talk about Robert Alford. Robert Alford is one of those guys that came over from the Atlanta Falcons, who was supposed to be one of the best contributors on the defensive backfield for this team. He was supposed to be able to switch between safety and corner for them, specifically really help in third down, big coverage situations, and it just hasn't been that. In fact, when you take a look at the depth chart for the Arizona Cardinals, you have Malcolm Butler, you have Byron Murphy, you have Darqueze Dennard, and Daryl Worley has now even surpassed Robert Alford. So I believe as the fifth corner on this depth chart, they would rather give that position to somebody who's younger, who isn't going to cost as much, and can work on special teams versus a guy that hopefully can regain his former glory. But at this point, it doesn't seem like he's going to be able to work his way back up the depth chart. Robert Alford could be on his way out in Arizona.
Up next, we have the Seattle Seahawks, and they've been doing a lot this offseason to get back to being the team they used to be, getting that defense back in shape. And the Seattle Seahawks so far this offseason have been doing a lot to get back to their winning ways. They started to slip a little bit last season, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and they're hoping to bounce back this season. But they have had some guys that have not been making the cut so far, that have not looked so good, and their biggest surprises so far are Aldon Smith at edge, cornerback Trey Flowers, and running back Rashad Penny. However, as we've seen, Aldon Smith has been released by the Seattle Seahawks due to his pending battery charges that are being pursued, and so they don't want to be linked to Aldon Smith at this time with his background as it is. Aldon Smith off this roster now leaves us with Trey Flowers and Rashad Penny to look at. And the biggest surprise to me is going to be Trey Flowers, for the sole fact that this defense lost Shaquille Griffin, and Trey Flowers was a guy that they were hoping could take over as one of their top 3 CBs on this defense. And now he's a guy that's not even projected to make the roster with the way he's performing. He is not keeping up with wide receivers. He is giving up a lot of ground. He is just not helping out in run situations. There is nothing really going good for Trey Flowers right now. And honestly, there might not be a reason for him to stick around on this roster, but he's definitely a big name to watch out for heading towards the 53-man roster cut at the end of training camp.
And finally, we have the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are one of those teams, again, that are primed for a Super Bowl run, with Jared Goff out in Detroit and now having Matthew Stafford in Los Angeles. They feel like they are primed now more than ever to make that Super Bowl run like they did a couple years ago, but now they have a quarterback that can take them over the hump. And taking a look at this roster, they have some guys that really have not stepped up to the plate and maybe want to give some of the younger guys a chance to fill in the back end of this roster. And some of those guys include outside linebacker Ogbenaya Okoronkwo, punter Johnny Hecker, and inside linebacker Kenny Young. I want to talk about Ogbenaya Okoronkwo, though. I'm just going to call him Big O for the rest of this video. Big O is one of those guys that, you know, really had a lot of hype around him coming to this team. He was going to work out well with Leonard Floyd and Aaron Donald on this roster, really going to set himself apart, but it just has not been the case. And when you take a look at the depth chart, he's actually not even starting behind guys like Justin Hollins and Justin Lawler. I mean, this guy is falling back and back and back on the depth chart. There could be a possibility where we see some of the younger guys taking reps over him and could see him out of this job in Los Angeles and looking for a team moving forward. I believe that Big O is one of those guys that really has a lot of skills. They just need to be honed and crafted a little bit more. They need to be refined, and he can be one of those guys that starts on a Super Bowl caliber team. He just needs the right coaching staff to really work with him, not a coaching staff that is expecting greatness to come out of you, and just hopefully you can put it out on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know this for sure, but it seems like Big O kind of saw when Samson Ebukam went to the 49ers, he was like, okay, this is my chance. I can just take this position over and I'm not going to have to worry about it. Well, he still has to compete because at the end of the day, it's the Los Angeles Rams and they're one of the scariest defenses in the NFL. You're going to have to earn your spot on this roster. And with him kind of just gliding through training camp, not producing the way they want him to, he's definitely a guy that can find himself on the outs. So I would not be surprised if Big O does not make this roster.
All right, well, I want to hear from you guys, the fans of the NFC West. Let us know down in the comments below which players we should keep our eyes out on, which players are on the roster bubble, which players are shining past these guys. I want to hear from you guys. Let us know in the comments. All right, well, that's going to be all for now. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.